With Embrace, I was working in the current time. I wasn't talking about a historical issue like with From Above. Those were events that happened in the 1940s. So my choice of color film for Embrace was to show that it's happening today, and these conversations were relevant right now and still evolving. When I took the photograph of Brian in May 2016, I had a really hard time understanding what I exactly wanted in the project and how I wanted it to look. After Brian's photograph, I photographed for about 6 months, and I threw all that film away. I was having a difficult time finding the right balance with color, and I felt that I was showing a little too much distraction with the colors, and there wasn't enough focus on the person I was photographing. So it was a total autistic meltdown for me until I understood how to photograph a color again. And I think that turnaround came with the first portrait of Rose that you see with the cross. Before I photograph each person, I asked them to tell me their story. And another thing that I asked them was, that the portrait is about them, and it's not about me, and I'm telling their story. And I asked them for any ideas and what they want their message to be. And Rose's message at the time was, she was transitioning. I think she was 8 or 9 years old at the time, and when she transitioned, she got thrown out of her church, and she was thrown out of 2 other churches before she finally found a church where she could be welcomed into. And the photograph that you see of her in front of the large cross was totally her idea. She brought me to this area where in rural New Jersey, which is about 2 hours outside of New York. She had found a church that welcomed her, and she's not particularly religious, but at the time she needed the comfort of a place that welcomed her. So you can see a very different portrait of her right next to her 2 years later, where the religious part of her life wasn't as prominent. And she definitely looks like a teenager. In that photo next to her, she has a different color hair, and you can see kind of a rebellious spark in her eyes. Whereas the photograph taken of her next to the cross, she kind of looked like a sweet little girl. When I photographed the From Above portraits, I really wanted you to photograph on people's eyes, and I didn't want you to worry too much about the compositions being different and thinking too much. I kind of wanted them to be stark, and every photograph from above was taken from a low angle to show honor and to show respect to each hibakusha and each firebombing survivor. And as I progressed with From Above, it's been 12 years now, the style of the photograph has also changed a little bit. I think it's become more complex. I don't think I could have been happy taking the same photograph in From Above for 12 years. I think I would have become bored as a photographer, and as a viewer, I think you would have gotten quite bored looking at the same composition. I think the tone of From Above did get darker as I took the portraits starting from Hiroshima in 2010 and 2011. they got more complex, the compositions also. And I think I physically got closer to the subjects because I wasn't as intimidated. And the more I learned, the more I wanted to show how harsh their experiences were to live through surviving the atomic bomb or the fire bombings, and then also what they went through later on in life, whether it be through discrimination or through health problems, and processing that. It wasn't easy for any of these people. So the compositions did change a lot, and with Embrace, I don't think you can compare my photographs with From Above. I mean, the only similarities is that I try to photograph emotion, and I got a lot of more variety in these Embrace photographs. Hopefully I've evolved as a photographer. If I was the same, I would be pretty bored. With Embrace, I'm trying to photograph more in a narrative style, because I see it as more of a long format project. Even though From Above has been exhibited for now 12 years, and I continue to photograph that project, and my goal is to keep exhibiting it. Embrace, I'm going to stay with the same group of people who I've started with and photograph them over a long period of time. And that's just, it's a different concept than photographing somebody one time, or many people one time. Well, one of the goals by exhibiting this project at Gallery F in Tokyo is to include portraits of the transgender and gender non-binary community living in Japan. Hopefully we can get that sooner than later. With COVID situation, I will come as soon as the borders reopen to photograph members of the community in Japan. I would hope that we could include that in the next exhibition of Embrace, if there is. It's important for me to show that this is a global and human interest story, that there are not just transgender people in a certain part of the world or a certain culture, that transgender people have always been included in every culture at every time. It's not something that has happened recently. We may be more aware of it now because people are identifying publicly as being transgender and gender non-binary. But this has happened, and we've had transgender people and gender non-binary people throughout our lives and throughout history.